grit to us is time and pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Will you put in the time? Will you completely devote yourself long enough to find out whether or not you can be successful at something?
Welcome to the Spartan DEKA series on Spartan Up with Jarod Cogswell, Director of Sport, and Yancy Culp, Director of Programming.
We know life, sports, all the things that we do, sometimes they can be a battle, and you need a corner man. And that's why we're bringing on Bruce Babashan to talk about grit, talk about purpose, peak performance, team connectivity. I mean, this guy is the coach of coaches, and we get to have him here today.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Trifecta. Trifecta delivers delicious, macro-balanced meals directly to your door. Use the code SPARTAN at trifectanutrition.com to save 40% off your first meal plan order.
What's up, Spartans? Welcome to the DEKA series on the Spartan Up podcast. I'm your co-host, Jarod Cogswell, along with my brother, Yancy Culp. But before we get started, Yancy, I just want to share a little personal story since we're talking about grit. I woke up, Adina and I, my wife, we woke up at 4 a.m. this morning. We said we're going to get a quick workout up on the mountain. And so I just always love being out there in the elements, in the cold, up at high altitude. And she's grinding away, and she gets up to the top of the mountain and, climbs it and says, "Let's go." And so we skied down, and here we are. It wasn't even 10 o'clock yet, and she's already out there doing her thing for the rest of the day. So that's, to me, my wife is an example of grit. But I'm really stoked to have Bruce on with us today. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas. It's an honor, truly. Excited to be here.
You know, JC, Bruce spent many years in the corporate world, high-level executive corporate world, and decided to kind of change career paths a little bit, and has gone on to coach world champions in the world of boxing, worked with high-level MMA athletes. I was totally intrigued by, here I've got my place in the corporate world, and you know what? I'm going to pull the rug out from under that, and I've heard Bruce say this. I'm now going to be on the bottom level in a world that I think that I want to do full time, and we're going to start down here and start building up, Bruce. I'm excited to hear that piece of it, because I think there are probably millions of people out there that have similar thoughts of like, well, I'm at where I'm at right now. I've got my gig going, but there's maybe something else that I would like to do.
Yeah, for me, I sort of see there's two types of people in the world in general, right? There's the type of folks that can that grind away on their job on a daily basis, and they can find and try and live their passion in their off time on the weekends or in the evenings and things like that. And then there's folks like me who get overtaken with their passion, and I can't sort of deny it. I just sort of have to live it, and I sort of resent the life I'm in if I'm not living, that way. And so for me, I was in corporate America when I got out of college, and I was, moving into the world of business. I didn't have a lot of ideas of what success was other than making a lot of money. I wasn't in touch with myself in any significant level, other than I knew that my friends were advancing. I wanted to be successful, and I just equated money to success. And I love money, but that's what I did. But I was floundering around in the world. I was a guy who could talk, I could chat, I was reasonably personable. So people said, well, get into sales. So I got into sales, and I was good at that, and I sold a bunch of things. But I wouldn't say I was losing, but I wasn't winning. And and I had these jobs anyway. When I get into a situation where I don't know what to do, this is just me. I pray a little bit, because that's probably all that's left to do. So I would just pray, and after a while, I kind of slipped back into my life. And then about 6 months later, I got a phone call from a guy named Chris Dona, who I had met some years previously. through a mutual friend. He was the former COO at Hasbro Toys and Bausch and Lomb. And Chris had called me up out of the blue, said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, nothing really, Chris." And he said, "Well, why don't you come work with me?" And I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "Well, I work in the retained executive search field. We do headhunting, at the chief executive level." And I said, or the board level or, high level positions. I said, "Chris, you got the wrong guy. I don't know one person like that. I've never, I can barely interview for a local job." He said, "But you got something." He said, "This is my job." He said, "I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. I want you to come work for me." So I said, I didn't have any other options. And I said, "Okay, let's do it. Why not?" And I remember I put on my only suit. I had one lime green suit or an olive green suit I had. And I went to Chicago. And I remember when I got off the airplane and I went to the office building, I saw the cars in the parking lot and I saw the people walking through there. And these were for real. I felt like that scene in Seinfeld where I said, "Oh my God, these people got real jobs and they get real cars." I'm like, "Oh my God." And I was nervous and I met them. And I remember when I flew home, I was like, "Holy crap, this is, this guy really doesn't know me." But anyway, it just so happened that about 2 weeks later, they were having this conference for all these everybody new who was joining the firm. And so I flew to St. Louis for this new, employee thing. And it really, everybody who was there was supposed to sell the service of executive search into the senior level business community. So, I clearly was, whatever he saw in me, I didn't see in myself. And I remember I went to this thing, but I psyched myself up on the plane ride. And I said, I'm going to be the rookie of the year. And, because I was by myself, right? And I was so I'm flying out there and I got there and I remember walking in, I had the exact same experience. The meeting was at the Four Seasons and I had never been in a Four Seasons. And I walked into the Four Seasons and I saw the watches on the people's hand, the wrists, and I saw the clothes and the real suits, what a real suit looked like on a guy. Right. And I saw the fancy cars and the valet. And I remember I walked into the room because I was early where we were going to be having this meeting and it was built like a horseshoe. So there was a podium and then the table were around like a U. And my buddy Chris, the guy who invited me, was standing at the last seat on the left-hand side. So I walked in, and it was just he and I sat down, and I literally was sweating. He goes, "Calm down, calm down." So all of a sudden, the room started filling up, and I saw, like I said, I saw all these people who I could just tell reeked success. And, they were sitting down. They had obviously been professional. The women were like to the nine, and they all just looked great and professional, and the fellows looked. And I felt like I was really out of place, and I started to sweat. And all of a sudden, the doors open up, and the CEO walks in. This guy's named Dave Hoffman, really, super prolific guy. Had this whole effect, this aura, and he walks in. And he says, "I'm Dave Hoffman, and, I'm CEO, and we're so excited that you're all here to join the firm." And he said, "Let's start by introducing ourselves." And he pointed to the left, so he was going to start on the exact opposite side of the room. And as each person stood up, they had senior folks from Coca-Cola and Pepsi and, McDonald's. And, and as each person talked, I felt smaller and smaller. And at one point, I felt like, I don't know if you ever remember the Flintstones, where Fred would sit across from Mr. Slade, his boss, and he would yell at him, and he'd shrink down in his chair to about this size. That's what I felt like. And by the time it got to me, I was completely convinced and confirmed that I was in over my head. I had no business being here. And, I stood up and I said, when I was flying on the plane, my goal was to be the rookie of the year. But looking at you folks and being in this room, my goals have changed. My new goal is I just don't want to be the first person to be fired. And everybody laughed a little bit. But I said that because, that's what I felt in a way. And I was trying to take humor and cover up for how I was feeling. And, we had a couple of things, and I paid attention at the breakout sessions about how to develop business and stuff like that. So when I left, my vision for myself and my goals were I'd been beaten and I hadn't even started. The bell hadn't even rung for the fight. And so I went back to my office in D.C. and I followed what they did, and I just went to work. I just started calling people, everybody I knew. I was dialing for dollars, and I called them. I didn't have any friends who knew anybody, who was CEOs, so I just, I would go. This is back in the day when they didn't have the internet too much. So I would go to the public library every day. There used to be reference sections. I'd go into the reference section, and they had a list of local companies and the executives. I'd write down a long list. I'd go to the office every day, and I would just call people and introduce myself, and I'd get meetings and whatever. And I did this repeatedly every day. And I had no reference point. I wasn't calling other people, in the firm, because I just assumed they were already kicking my butt and they were knocking the ball out of the park. And I come to find out 6 months, 7 months later, they have an annual conference that I'm one of the top producing rookies in the entire firm. And I realized that I might be, even though I had everything, I was making a lot of money and I was doing really well, but I didn't feel particularly fulfilled in any way. In fact, I kept trying to take the job and make it into something else. And during all this time, I would go into the boxing gym every morning and I would train. And, then I would go in after work and train, and I was a sparring partner. I wasn't gifted. I was a decent athlete all through college. I played through college baseball, but not a super athlete. And I got into fighting, and so I ended up, going to the gyms, and I really loved that. Like, nobody had to pay me to do it, right? I would go in at 4:35 in the morning, train in the morning, leave, put my suit on. They used to call me Bulwark. I put my suit on, go in there and fool them for 8 hours. And then I'd go to the gym where I was at home and comfortable, and I'd bang around every day. And I'd come into work with black eyes and stuff like that. And people would, what is wrong with you? And I said, well, this is my thing.
It's like a scene out of
one
Fight
day
Club.
Right, yeah. That was my thing, right? And I'd come in and my face would be flat and people would go, what is wrong with you? But I was always in the gym. My heart and mind were in the gym. And, one day, I just decided that business wasn't, I could do it and I could be successful, but I wanted to pursue this. I wanted to pursue coaching.
Yeah, you found your purpose and passion.
Absolutely. And I couldn't deny it. Like I couldn't satiate my desire for it before work and after work. It had to be my life. I'm that guy, right? I'm that guy. That, like I said, there's other guys, and I envy other guys sometimes that could be the other guy that could work from 9 to 5 and then chase that dream in the evening and chase it in the morning on the weekends. But I'm not that guy, right? I can't compartmentalize my emotions and stuff. I'm all in or I'm not. So, when I decided I wanted to do this, my work began to erode and I didn't give a crap. I mean, this is what I wanted to do. And I said, well, why play around anymore? I'm just going to jump. Now, I was also dumb and naive because, as you guys were saying earlier, I had this incredibly stupid and naive idea that I was just going to jump from one ledge to the next, right? I was going to stay parallel and I was going to jump from here to here. And I'd figure it out because you're a smart guy, you'll figure it out. Well, I jumped from here all the way back down to the bottom because I didn't have any way of generating income of significance. I kind of had fooled myself. And, I had to reset my life and I had to reset my goals and I had, in terms of financially. And so that was 25 years ago. But it's taken 20 some years for me to regain some, nice economic status. And it's been an uphill battle, but it's been one that I've enjoyed as opposed to one I was fighting the entire time. And so for me, coaching and helping and contributing is my life. It's the way that I get value for my life. It's not things. Although I love things, don't get me wrong, and I love money. I really love money. I'm not in conflict with money in any way, and I like to make money. But for me, I had to find a way to make money in the thing I love, and that's my story up to the boxing world. And then the boxing thing, you like any career, first of all, boxing is a very competitive sport, in every aspect of it, and it takes a long time to develop fighters. It takes a long time to take fighters from 0 to 100. But anyway, and then I got involved, and I just did that, and I developed a reputation in the sport. And prior to all of that, when I was young, I had some things happen to me that were good. Like for a couple of years, I took off, and I was a competitive powerlifter and a bodybuilder. This is back in my college days. And I ended up getting a job as a strength conditioning coach at the University of Maryland for the football program under a guy named Coach Costello, who was one of the great coaches back then. And so when I became a boxing coach, I was able to take that knowledge and apply that. I'd be able to take my life experiences from that, the fitness component side, and apply that to my coaching. I was able to take my life experiences from the business community and talk to my athletes about finding their passion and finding, their spirit inside the sport. And I was able to use that. And then I used all my childhood relationships and the college coaching that I learned. And I tried to become the coach that I always wanted, the coaches that I looked up to and the coaches that coached me.
Bruce, let me tell you something real quick, JC, before you dive in. I've heard that you are a master storyteller. And now I know why. I felt like I was reading a really good book, or I was watching a really good movie. And I forgot that I was on a damn podcast interviewing you. I was into your story about the little dust floating through the air, and you are a good storyteller, my friend, and that's a dream come true to a couple podcast co-hosts. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back to this interview, but first, a quick message from Trifecta.
We started Trifecta with a very singular mission: to get America into shape. We were really interested in launching a business that was able to actually directly help people. That happened to be us helping with the chronic disease crisis that's caused by nutrition. We make it with organic ingredients, macro balanced meals, fully biodegradable packaging.
Trifecta's here. Oh yeah!
We have an amazing company mission to help get America back into shape.
Use the code Spartan at trifectanutrition.com to save 40% off your first meal plan order. Now back to the interview.
Yeah, Bruce, your story, to me, that at least from my perspective, it's truly an example of perseverance. I love, your humility, and you're also a student all at the same time. And I think those are things that manufacture good coaches today. But overall, I think when we were talking about grit, that's a story of grit, and perseverance. How do you define grit? And, let's face it, when you're talking boxing or any type of combat sport, you got to be able to instill some grit in some of your athletes. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So the modern, grit, the concept of grit as we know it in the modern world, Angela Duckworth, the woman who did the original study on grit, really, she discovered something and documented something that I think most coaches knew anecdotally for 100 years. And her work is wildly important, but it's more affirming to me than it is a discovery, right? So, we say there's only two things you really need to be successful: time and pressure. Now, if you put enough time in something and you put enough pressure on it, eventually things will start to break your way. Success in and of itself, there's levels within levels. It's to be the very best at something. But when we talk about grit, the ability to delay gratification, that which is lost. If you think about the way society is set up, you can get your money instantly. You and I can talk instantly. Nobody writes letters. Everything happens in an instant. So there's very little exercising of that part of especially in kids, to delay gratification. And the ability to delay gratification, the ability to persevere, to suffer, to sacrifice, and devote yourself to something over a long period of time is something that has to sort of be developed in kids today. Because when we were younger, that was a more, if you wanted to see your friends, you had to get on your bike. You had to ride to the other neighborhood. You didn't even know if they were going to be there. That process may take 4 or 5 hours, right? Today, you get on your phone, you do what we're doing right now, and you know if Joey's home, and you don't even have to go there, right? You and Joey can talk like this. So there's no delayed gratification built into the system, so we got to teach that. So grit, to me, there's two components of it the way I see it. And we use the word grit and mental toughness in my gym a lot. Grit to us is time and pressure. Mm-hmm. Will you put in the time? Will you completely devote yourself long enough to find out whether or not you can be successful at something? And then when you put your time in and your energy in, this happens a lot. We have a saying at my gym is that most people are afraid to find out that their best isn't good enough. And that's exactly what keeps them from becoming their best. So grit to us, the way that we talk about grit, look, mental toughness, these words all sort of they're sort of a word, they get jammed together, right? What is mental toughness? Grit, you got to have mental toughness, you got to have grit, you got to have perseverance, you got to have all these things. Grit sort of encapsulates all that, but to us, grit is simply two things, time and pressure. The grit component piece. Excellence is something different, right? Excellence is something different to the way that I approach it as a coach. And so there's what I tell all my athletes is there's 6 ways to win every fight. There's skill, there's will, there's talent, there's tactics, there's conditioning, and there's strategy. And then there's 3 things that influence that: preparation, execution, and imagination. And those are the ways, the 6 ways to win really are in your control, except for talent, because you're born with talent. But the other component pieces are the way that influence outcomes. And so excellence and grit are 2 different things, right? Can you persevere? Can you take yourself to the point at which you can be successful? That's what grit is. Being successful is a totally different thing in our mind. And that is, you have to simply, now you have to execute. Now you have to prepare, now you have to execute. And in the process of execution, do you have the imagination? Do you have the creativity to create opportunities that aren't apparent to you? That's brilliant. That's artistry, right? And so grit is the basic foundation, what we teach our athletes. If a kid gets knocked down, get up. Get back to your feet. I don't want to hear about it. Get back to your feet. But that doesn't make you, that what makes you excellent is having grit applied with your ability to perform at the highest levels when you need to. And that's excellence. And we separate the two in the gym a lot. We spend a lot of time on that.
Mm.
You also talk, Bruce, about the grit advantage. What's the grit advantage?
Yeah. Most people give up, if you give up, most people give up halfway. Right? If you make a commitment, you get up in the morning, you just decide, I'm going to go all the way. And, 90% of people will give up 50% of the way there. And because it gets difficult. And you can beat 90% of people. And we tell our athletes all this time, you can beat 90% of people on pressure alone. You put enough pressure on people, 90% of them will fold 50% of the way there. And if you just simply commit that you will be the last man standing or the last woman standing, and whatever it is, if you commit to that, you have a distinct advantage over 90% of people, because everybody starts off, but 90% of people will quit 50% of the way there. It gets difficult. You see this every January 2nd, right? People quit, they get these ideas. But I see it in the gym every day. Kids want to come in. How many of you want to be champions? And all the hands go up, of course. But when 3 months into it, when we're telling kids, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, 90% of them quit, not because they're right, because it's difficult. So if you just commit to being the last person standing, you're already ahead of 90% of the people you're committing. Now you're at a different level. You're in the top 10%. Now you have to work it. Now there's levels within that. But 90% of people quit 50% of the way there. And your advantage is that's 100% within your control. Commit to being the last person standing. I'm going to be the last man standing. I don't care what I'm going to be the last man standing. You're already in the top 10%.
What's the best way to get in contact with you, Bruce?
Well, you can go to I do some speaking, and that sort of grew organically. So you can go to my website, yourcornerman.com, if that's of interest. I'm on social media. I'm on Your Corner Man. I'm everything but on the website. I'm really just about boxing, and that on the website, that's a little bit of commercial stuff about speaking, and I got some help people, people promote me and that kind of stuff. But if you want to find out about that, it's yourcornerman.com. Otherwise, on Instagram, I'm Your Corner Man, and I'm Bruce Babashan on Facebook, and that's it.
All right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Spartan Up. Do you want to be ready for anything? Download Joe's free ebook at spartan.com/readyforanything. Do you know someone who needs a little help staying motivated, staying informed, getting or staying mentally and physically resilient? We're here 3 days every week with a mix of content to help you stay strong. From mindset to nutrition and everything in between. Listen every Tuesday to hear Joe DeSena, Spartan Race founder and CEO. And the rest of the week, join us for DEKA, endurance, and classic episodes. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Trifecta. Trifecta delivers delicious, macro-balanced meals directly to your door. Use the code SPARTAN at trifectanutrition.com to save 40% off your first meal plan order.